Welcome to Baby Boomer Tales. My name's Jim. You can find us at babyboomertales.com. Once you've arrived at our webpage, there are links to our Facebook page, our Boomers General Store, our shop tales at Amazon, and links to where you can listen to our podcast, including our YouTube channel. You can write us at babyboomertales@gmail.com. How are you all today? You been watching the Olympics?
We have been watching the Olympics, Jim.
Our unusual facts. The 1928 Winter Olympics featured ski juring. The way they did it is a riderless horse pulled a skier. Do you know what ski juring is? I used to do it when I was a kid. My dad would hook a rope to the bumper of his pickup truck and take us up on the airport road. It was a mesa above town, and pull us kids. That was a lot of fun. It was more fun on a sled though. You had less control and you'd crash more often. Ski juring. Dog sledding was a demonstration sport in the 1932 Olympics. Eddie Egan is the only Olympic medalist in both Winter and Summer Games. Bobsled in the Winter Olympics, boxing in the Summer Olympics. And finally, the fastest sport in the Winter Olympics is the luge. They can go around 90 miles an hour. Now is the time for the top 10 of 1970. That is the top 10 popular songs for the entire year of 1970. Number 10, Make It With You, Bread. Number 9, Mama Told Me Not to Come, Three Dog Night. Number 8, American Woman, No Sugar Tonight, The Guess Who. Number 7, Band of Gold, Frida Payne. Number 6, by Edwin Starr, War. Number 5, by Simon and Garfunkel, Bridge Over Troubled Water. Number 4, I Want You Back, the Jackson 5. Number 3, They Long to Be Close to You, the Carpenters. Number 2, by the Beatles, Let It Be. And the number 1 song for the entire year of 1970 by B.J. Thomas, Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head. It was written by Burt Bacharach and was featured in the movie Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Now for another edition of Forky and Earl. Hey Forky, what are you doing? I'm getting ready to go up to the ski area, Earl. You want to go? Well, I have to go home and get my skis and my ski boots and my ski poles, Forky. No, you don't, Earl. We're not going skiing. I want to see some people I know up there. Want to go? My brother Ray's going to drive us, and we're leaving here pretty quick. Okay, Forky, let me call my mom. So Forky and Earl hitched a ride with Ray, and off to the ski area they went. Here we are, Earl. I've got a pencil and I got paper, and we're going to get us some autographs. Who are we going to get to autograph, Forky? Well, this is the Olympic trials, I think. Anyway, those Olympic skiers are here, Earl, and we're going to get their autographs. That sounds like fun, Forky. I know, Earl. There's guys we know. Who do we know, Forky? I know Billy Kid. Do you mean the outlaw? No, Earl, I mean the skier. I knew that, Forky. He's a good skier. You bet your bottom dollar, Earl. He's a good skier. And also Jimmy Huga is here, and let's get his. Okay, Forky, that sounds like a plan. can we get Buddy Warners while we're here? I was planning on getting Buddies. You betcha, Earl. So Earl looked at Forky, and Forky looked at the ski mountain, and there were people coming down the ski mountain, and there's part of it that I had all closed off for the big-time skiers to ski on. That is for the Olympic caliber skiers over there, Earl. Earl said, I know it, Forky. I figured it out. And Forky said, it's right at that mountain that comes down to the skating rink, Earl. And Earl said, I know. I played hockey on that skating rink, Forky. And Forky said, you like to ski, don't you, Earl? Earl said, I like to skate and I like to ski. What about you, Forky? And Forky said, I like to get autographs, Earl. And so the boys went into the warming house, and they found a bunch of people that looked very important there. And Forky went up to the first one and said, hello, my name is Forky, and you're Jimmy Huga. Will you sign this piece of paper for me, please? And Jimmy Huga looked at him and smiled and said, how you doing, Forky? And Forky says, we're real good. Will you sign Earl's too? And so Jimmy Huga signed autographs for Forky and Earl. And then Forky says, much obliged, Jimmy Huga. Do you know where Billy Kid is? And so Jimmy Huga pointed over there across the room, and there was a skier guy, and his name was Billy Kid. So Forky and Earl got his autograph also. And then as they were looking around, Earl said, there's Buddy Warner. I know who he is. Let's get his autograph. And Forky said, I'm 2 steps ahead of you, Earl. Let's go. And so they got Buddy Warner's autograph also. And everything was good with Forky and Earl as they goofed around and watched skiers and all the girls that liked the ski boys, and everybody seemed very happy. And then Earl and Forky called Earl's mom, and she came and got them and took them home. On this story, I was probably 13 years old, and when I got home with Buddy Warner's autograph, my mother told me a story about how when she was a girl, she would babysit Buddy Warner. Somewhere along the line, I've lost those 3 autographs. I don't know how that happened, but back when I was a 13-year-old boy, I wasn't very responsible. I wish I had buddies today, I really do. But I'll never forget my mother telling me that she babysat Buddy Warner. I miss you, Mom. I miss you, Wayne. Buddy died that following April in an avalanche somewhere over in Europe. He tried to outrun it. I don't think he had any choice. The avalanche was right in back of him and on him before he even knew it. Rest in peace and happy trails, Buddy. What we're going to talk about is now and then and now, and everything in between. Let's start out with sleep. My sleep patterns when I was a boy are completely different than they are today. And as I became a young man, they were even more different. When I was a little boy, I'd have to go to bed at 8 or 9 at night, and then I would get up pretty early, usually on my own. As I became a teenager, I wanted to stay up later and sleep in later. And of course, on school days, that wasn't an option. And even on a Saturday, that was not an option because my dad always had work for us boys to do on Saturday. Today, my sleep patterns are really weird. Anytime after 7, I'm likely to go to bed. I try to keep from going to bed any earlier than that. I had an uncle, Uncle Jim, who we used to kid him because sometimes I think he went to bed about 4:30 in the afternoon. Of course, he'd get up quite early in the morning. And so when I'm wanting to go to bed at 5:30, 6 o'clock at night, I tell myself, now you don't want to turn into Uncle Jim, do you? Well, really, Uncle Jim was a class act. He was. He's a quality person, and I do want to be like Uncle Jim in so many ways, but I don't think hitting the hay at 4:30 is one of them. Sometimes I'll get up at 4 o'clock in the morning if I go to bed too early, But I find that usually I go to bed around 8 and I read and whatever for about an hour afterwards. So between 9 and 10 I usually turn the light off. Henceforth, between about 5 and 8 I wake up. My goal is always to wake up at 8 in the morning, but that doesn't happen very often. 6 is more likely it is. Newspapers. Do you know what a newspaper is? Probably, if you're listening to this podcast, you're old enough to remember newspapers quite fondly. Some of you may even read them newspapers still. I have not read a newspaper in a very, very long time. When the internet hit, I remember I had Prodigy, and it was back in the days of dial-up with a terrible sound before you got linked in, and then you just read words. And Prodigy one time came with this thing saying, we're going to start showing pictures. It was an exciting time. And so, for example, just click this. So I clicked it, and it literally took about a minute for the picture to load in, one line at a time. Well, the reason I did not like the demise of newspapers is because it was easy to read sports stats, like Major League Baseball leaders, in the football season, the NFL rushing leaders and all that stuff, passing leaders. But today I got it down so I can find that stuff very, very quickly. I have things bookmarked so I can find it in just a jiffy, and I don't miss a newspaper whatsoever. But I do think that it is a sad thing, the passing of a newspaper. TVs. We all make jokes about, little brother was the remote, and we had 3 channels, and at midnight the Star Spangled Banner would play, and the Indian would show on the screen, and all that stuff. But what I think is the biggest difference with TV, besides the size, now our house, when we built it, we have in the family room, and that's our main TV, a fireplace in the middle of this one wall, a bookcase on the right side, and on the left side is this place for the TV. And at the time, we had a 32-inch TV, which was quite a large TV for those days back in the late 1990s. And nothing was really much larger than that except for the projection screen TVs. Remember those? Well, today I have a 47-inch TV sitting there, and that's about as big as I can go for the space I have. And my wife suggests if I want a larger TV, put it above the fireplace, and I don't want that. I don't want to look up at the TV. I want it straight on with where I'm sitting. So I'm stuck with a 47-inch TV. Now we have larger TVs other places in the house, but I do not watch those because this one is hooked up for my hearing situation, the one I watch in the family room. When we first built this house, we had satellite TV, and I remember helping the guy run the wires all through the house to every bedroom, every bathroom, everything. There was a wire and an outlet for hook up your TV for your satellite. Well, that has really changed, hasn't it? We went from antenna to satellite and cable to everything over the internet now. Now, I still have an antenna. If the internet ever gave away, I could still watch TV. I have one pointed towards Kansas City and one antenna pointed towards Topeka, so I'm sure I could get TV if I wanted to. And once in a while I check it out, make sure everything's working. Coffee. Yeah, coffee. Back at the Chuck Wagon restaurant, back in my little hometown there in north central Colorado Rocky Mountains, 8,000 feet above sea level. Right there at the junction where the highway either goes to the west and eventually end up in California, or you can go to the north and go through the national park and end up on the front range instead of the western slope. There's a little restaurant. It's not so little, it's really big, and everything's kind of wagon train. The sign on the front, the entranceway, and you get in there, the spokes, like wagon spokes on the ceiling and all that. They always had 5-cent coffee. They had it from the time I was a little boy until I left that country at the age of 38. It's amazing. And I think that if the same people owned it and it was still called the Chuck Wagon, they might still have 5-cent coffee today. You're not going to make your money on coffee anyway. Oh, tell that to some of these coffee shops sell you that $5 coffee today. I want the nickel coffee. I don't care. I'm not going to drink that $5 coffee. The latte, cappuccino, whatever the heck it is. And I know I sound kind of like a hillbilly here, but I don't care. I want my coffee black, and I want it simple, and I want it hot. We're in the information age, and it used to be, when I was a boy, information was spread around by radio, by TV on the news, by the telephone, or by mouth. Today, information goes flying every which way from every conceivable outlet you can imagine, and then some. And most of it isn't even correct. Now, the last thing we thought is seeing is believing, because you couldn't believe half of what you heard or any of that stuff, but now you can't even believe it when you see it because of all the AI. Now, if you watch that AI, you can kind of tell that it's not real, but just looking at a lot of it, how would you know? And the last thing I want to talk about are cars. Do you know anybody that's under 30 that knows how to drive a standard transmission? Now, if he's a farm kid, probably, because you have to drive the tractor and whatever. Most of these new tractors, though, aren't that way either. We have a clutch and 3 on the tree or 4 on the floor or 5-speed. That is a pretty fast, hot car. There may not be a mirror on your passenger side. Cars today go much further than cars did back when I was a boy. But there's not any comparison between these 4-banger gas engines and a V8 like a GTO. No comparison at all. Now, that little 4-cylinder is going to get better gas mileage, but I don't think it has any muscles at all. Yeah, that's about it today. Thank you for riding along. Remember that time goes by in a blink of an eye, so enjoy every minute, and everyone you love, let them know about it. Always be kind. I'll be back next Wednesday. That's my plan. Peace out.